Hi there, I'm Vincent Bos and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing Let Them Go to Get Them Back. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast, and today we are discussing Let Them Go to Get Them Back. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you may be confused by the conflict between your feelings and the advice given to you. In today's podcast, I'll be discussing 3 reasons why if you let your ex go, you stand a much better chance of getting them back in the future. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is you can't cage a bird. So here are a few popular sayings for you to consider. Release them, and if it's meant to be, they'll find their way back to you. If you love something, let it go. If it returns, it was always yours, and if not, it was never meant to be. Love is like a boomerang. If you let it go, it will come back to you. Sometimes you have to let go to see if there was anything worth holding on to. Now, when we consider these sayings and the many others which are similar, we can see that there is a lot of historical thought and belief in the principle of letting an ex go as a way of trying to reconnect in the future. And this type of compounded theory based on hundreds of years of experience should be a good basis to believe that there could be something in it. You can't cage a bird and expect it to be happy, and you can't force someone to be in a relationship with you. Someone who is happy is more likely to want to be with you, and hence, trying to trap them is certainly not a way to build a positive relationship now or in the future. So you might be listening to this and thinking, well, if they're not happy with me and they're happier without me, how on earth can this be a way of them one day deciding they want to be with me again? So let me explain. When you and your now former partner were in a relationship, you were both feeling a high level of romantic emotional attraction for one another. And also on top of this, generally speaking, you and your now former partner would have been happy, excited for the future, and positive on the relationship. Now, for various potential reasons, unfortunately, your now dumper started to lose romantic emotional attraction for you. When this attraction hit the necessary low point, they actioned for breakup, but there was more to it than that. They didn't just feel a low level of attraction. Generally speaking, they would have been unhappy. They would have been feeling unfulfilled. They would have been feeling unsatisfied within the relationship, and therefore they want to try something new. And this something new is going on their own path, their own journey as a single person. So, at the time of the breakup, your ex-dumper was feeling a low level of attraction and generally speaking was feeling some level of unhappiness. If you were to try and prevent them from moving out of their cage, if that's what we're going to refer to this as, then you're going to be holding them back and maintaining their level of unhappiness. If, however, you decide to let them go, let them fly away, let them live their life, you're providing a positive input on their decision to try their best on their new route. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't fight for your relationship at the time of a breakup. You know, I always say at the time of a breakup, whether it is in person, whether it is via text, whether it is a call, you can say your piece. You can say how much you love your now former partner. You can be the person who apologizes if necessary. You can explain why you think this relationship should continue. And some of you will be able to turn it around at this point. But for those of you who can't, when the dust has settled, when the breakup is finalised, you can't cage the bird. You know, they want to move forward with their life. If you try and trap them, they are going to remain unhappy. Some dumpers will stay with dumpees for a little while longer through pity, through worry, through concern, just because their ex-dumpee is starting to come across as somebody who is unstable. Maybe the dumper is starting to feel very concerned for the dumpee and they think, you know what, I'm going to stay with them and see if we can work this out. Unfortunately, this is very unlikely to be a long-term solution because the dumper is still not happy. And unless things change and evolve, it's very unlikely to improve forevermore. And more likely that the dumper will just end things a few months further down the line. So when we consider the breakup, when we consider the end of a relationship, the dumper is feeling unhappy. Their happiness is moving forward out of the relationship. You as a dumpee is almost acting as the gatekeeper. Are you somebody who is going to be trying to hold your ex back by saying a whole manner of things and behaving in a whole manner of ways which are probably unreasonable, which might even be a bit scary, which would totally showcase yourself as having an unstable mindset? Is this going to help your cause of having a long-term relationship with your former partner again? Maybe it gets them back for a few weeks, a couple of months, but quite likely it won't even achieve that. It will just push them further away, and you may even be blocked. Your alternative is the only option. Your only option is to say in your own words, look, I want this to continue, I don't want this to end, but I respect your decision. And if you ever want to talk in the future, just let me know. And kind of put that out there. Now, I wouldn't suggest that you actually say, if you change your mind, contact me, because that puts pressure on your ex-dumper to think, well, I can only contact them if I'm absolutely certain I want to get back together this very second. And that is unlikely. There's going to be a communication stage for certain. Now, this doesn't mean that you're going to be accepting a platonic friendship, certainly nothing along those lines. But if you just say, if you want to speak, just let me know, then that is a way for them to reach out to you potentially, and you can gauge the situation at the time. Now, if you're confused about all of this, about what you should be saying, how, where, and why, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you can speak one-on-one about your unique specific situation. Go to my website, www.dateme.tips, for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. But if you let your ex go in a way where they understand that you didn't want the relationship to end, but they can see you are being respectful and you have a stable mindset, they are going to be leaving the relationship with a positive thought towards you. Now, going back to the very beginning of point number 1, when we were speaking about how you can't cage a bird and expect it to be happy, you need to be letting your ex go. Let them have a positive final memory of your interactions and your connection. If your last interaction is you swearing at your ex, threatening them, saying this, that, and the other, they're a lot less likely to want to reach out and maybe reconnect in the future, in comparison to if you're saying, look, I don't want this to end, but I respect your decision. And if you ever want to speak again, just contact me. And then if you implement my version of a no contact rule, you are leaving them with a positive thought of you as they move forward out of the relationship cage. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast about let them go to get them back. And point number 2 is prove your worth. So when we go through a breakup, we can be thinking to ourselves, what am I supposed to do right now? My ex-dumper has ended the relationship. They're doing their own thing. I'm feeling really low energy. I'm feeling unsuccessful, unhappy, unmotivated, unfulfilled. I'm feeling really, really sad. What can I do right now? I'm not allowed to chase them. I'm not allowed to text them. How on earth can I try and get them back? This is when you have to prove your worth. This is when you have to be stand up to be counted. This is when you have to find that self-motivation. Or if you can't motivate yourself, then maybe that's again when my audio coaching service could come in, because I am certainly somebody who could motivate you. But you need to be motivated one way or the other to start living your life to the full, proving your worth, becoming a version 2.0 of yourself. Your ex will not reconnect with you if you're the same person that they dumped. Remember that. You need to improve. Just as they do, just as I do, just as we all do. We're all human. We all need to improve every day. You've got to understand that no person that was dumped was ever reconnected with if they haven't improved. They've got to improve upon the person that was broken up with. That person had a relationship ended. You can't be that person anymore. You can't stand still. You've got to grow. You've got to keep pushing forward. You've got to do your thing. Prove your worth. And via friends of friends, social media, and many other ways, your ex-dumper may find out about your progress. And even if they don't, my version of a no contact rule will intrigue your ex to the point where in most instances they will at some stage reach out to you, and therefore then they can understand and see the progress that you have made. A dumper might reach out to a dumpee not knowing if they've improved, but they're only going to stick around if they can see the improvements have been made. Certainly, a dumpee runs a huge risk of not only remaining a version 1, but actually dropping down to a version 0.5, a version 0.5. This is a big risk for dumpees. As a dumpee, as I've already said, you're feeling unsatisfied, unmotivated, you're feeling very, very sad. It can be very difficult to not only push forward, but to even stand still. I always say we need to make sure we're not standing on a glass floor. We can't keep falling. We've got to stabilise. So your first step is to stabilise, and your second step is to push forward. And that is how you can prove your worth. So now let's get into point number 3 and my final point of today's podcast about let them go to get them back. And point number 3 is respect yourself to get respect back. Point number 3 is all about looking in the mirror physically and metaphorically. Now, first of all, you've got to take accountability. There is nothing worse than a dumpee who doesn't take accountability, than a dumpee who puts all of the blame on their ex-dumper. At the end of the day, they made a choice that they didn't feel fulfilled in the relationship. Okay, that is their choice based on their feelings. And we have to recognise that that can't be wrong. Their choice can't be wrong because it's their feelings and how they are expressing themselves at the time. So once you acknowledge that, once you realise and recognise they've ended a relationship because things need to change, this is where you can really look in that mirror, physically, metaphorically, and decide if and what change needs to be made. Now, sometimes you might be thinking, I don't need to change, and there's a very valid reason. You might think that your ex-dumper's viewpoints are certainly not ones that you agree with. If this is the case, then looking in the mirror will actually bring you to the conclusion that you and your ex were not as good a fit as you first thought. And the element of respecting yourself is actually thinking, do I need to change in the way my ex-dumper seems to want me to? Now, in point number 2, I was talking about growing, becoming a version 2.0 of yourself. We all need to do that, but we don't all need to change to the absolute ideal that the dumper may request. That might be a toxic request, potentially. So you really got to consider, have I got to grow as a person? Yes, you have. We all have. Every single day we've got to improve. But do I have to become the absolute ideal for what my ex-dumper wants? That is specific to them. It doesn't necessarily mean that that is going to be something you're comfortable with. You can only act for so long. If it's not truly you, it's not going to work out, not only for you, but for them as well. So this is the element of respecting yourself, looking in that mirror and thinking, do I need to change in a way that I know they'd want me to? Is there something that really suits me? Okay, that is what you've got to really think about. Now, not only is respecting yourself in this element something that you need to consider, but you also need to be respecting yourself in a way where you are not continuously beating yourself up. Some dumpees do the opposite of not taking accountability, and that is they blame themselves for everything. You are not to blame for everything. Your ex-dumper is not perfect. I can almost guarantee that. So yes, take accountability. Yes, make changes where necessary, but don't beat yourself up forever. You're not respecting yourself if you blame yourself forever more. You're actually reducing your value even lower. You need to be stabilising and growing, remember. Not showcasing yourself as somebody who is low value, blaming yourself, I'm not good enough, it's all my fault, moan. That isn't going to help. You've got to recognise that there is a point where you forgive yourself. We've all been there, I've been there, I blame myself for everything. But you've got to realise there comes a point where you make the changes you can, you live your life in the right way, and then you forgive yourself. And when you forgive yourself and you stop blaming yourself for everything, when you take the appropriate amount of accountability, then you can push forward, then you can grow, then you can fit into that point number 2 where I was talking about becoming a better person, making sure you're pushing forward. Now, if you respect yourself, you're going to get respect back, not just from your ex, but theoretically from anybody who comes across you and sees you, even if it's just the way you physically present yourself. If you leave the house looking a real mess, that is not going to help you attract your ex or anybody else. It's not going to help you get or keep a job. It's not going to help you maintain friendships. Most people are going to want to be around other people who respect themselves, making sure you have good personal hygiene, making sure your style is on point. It doesn't matter what style that is, but making sure that you're presenting yourself in a way which is respectable. Have respect for how you look. Don't leave the house looking a mess. It's very easy as a dumpee to leave a house and thinking, oh, I look dreadful, but I don't care anymore. I don't care what people think. Now, I'm not saying that you should be living your life by how other people view you, but you need to have some self-respect, some basic principles of living your life in a healthy way, good personal hygiene, making sure your style is looking good for what you want to look like, and then leaving the house with your head held high. This is how you can regrow your self-confidence. Smile when people smile at you. Look at people when people look at you. You know what I'm saying. Don't keep your head down. Don't sit in the corner. Don't hide away. If you respect yourself, you will then get respect back. And this is a huge element, because if and when your ex-dumper reaches out to you, again, you need to be holding your frame. You need to keep your head high. You need to respect yourself. Yes, apologize if necessary. But if you don't feel there's anything to apologize for, don't continually apologize. Don't come across as low value. Respect yourself and get respect back from your ex and anybody else who interacts with you. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.